Everyone, welcome to a new episode of Women of Community Banking podcast. Today we have Molly with us. Hi Molly, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, Molly. So we reached out to Molly, very blank, random on LinkedIn. That Molly, why don't you be a part of our podcast? And she's kind enough to agree to that. And Molly, thank you for agreeing to join us in another episode of Women of Community Banking podcast. It's a movement that we are doing to have voices of women leaders, the unheard voices of women leaders, out there for everyone to seek motivation and inspiration from. So again, thank you, appreciate it. So who is Molly, right? Molly Pastore is the first vice president of marketing and experience at Navigant. She's had an illustrious career in marketing, close to 2 decades, I think 15 plus years of experience in marketing. Very similar background, Molly, as of mine. I mean, I have experience in consulting, sometime in an ad agency at Accenture. So Molly had also started a career from an ad agency and eventually moved on to industry, moved on to working with Navigant. Very similar story. Couple of interesting nuggets about her, right? She's a huge proponent of soccer, right? So she's played the first division, the Division One soccer herself. So guys, this is real serious, right? So we gelled up very well about soccer before we did the recording, and we thought of talking about soccer. It's one of our very close and near and dear things, and that's the reason that actually dovetails into what she does outside work, right? So she sits on a board of something called Project Goal. So Project Goal is aimed towards mentoring kids after school, and if they're like doing good, then these guys promote the kids to play soccer for some time, right? So does it, and that's like very near and dear to her because of that combines both her vision towards mentoring people as well as bringing the best that what she had done earlier, playing soccer. So Molly, I don't know if that was a decent enough introduction of yours. If I missed out anything, which I sure I have, please feel free to add something.
No, that was a perfect intro. Thank you again for having me. Happy to be here. And exactly what you said, I started in the agency world, and Navigant, fun fact, was actually one of the first accounts I worked on. Had a few marketing jobs in between, and then when a position opened up here, applied and obviously got it, and have been here almost 10 years now. So it's been a great journey.
Absolutely, Molly. So obviously, it's a transition from playing soccer to running marketing, right? I mean,
Quite a
something
bit. Yep.
completely different. And that's amazing. I mean, I'm always a fan of unconventional careers, right? I mean, you did soccer, then you started, ad agency, very similar, moved to the client side, now at Navigant. So during this phase, Molly, so what keeps you going, I mean, every day? Because you've got a bunch of things to do at Navigant. Navigant is on a path of growth right now. You're doing a bunch of things, experimentation. So what keeps you going?
I think the constant learning keeps us going here. I mean, our days are busy, the days fly by, but we're learning something new every day. We like to think of ourselves in the marketing department as the keepers of the brand, and we have our brand everywhere in multiple channels. And I think it's so exciting when you do see it out live in person. You're driving down the highway and you see a billboard that someone on your team or your ad agency made, but you were a part of that. You see it in schools when we have our financial education people out there teaching, and they're learning something new. I think it's so rewarding, and I think that really does keep us going, even on those days where you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get all my work done? When you see the rewarding side of it and the growth, of course, too, it's a really great feeling.
I completely understand. Now, let's talk about your journey, Molly. I mean, it has been a long one, almost 2 decades, right? If I were to ask you to share your journey, would you want to share that with our guests?
Sure. So in terms of beginning of the career, one thing I did want to note, which I think is important, is that ad agency that I did start at, I had done an internship there, so I'm a huge advocate for doing internships because one, you never know where they're going to lead, the connections you're making. You could get your first job out of it, like I did for myself. But in terms of being at Navigant, I started as a marketing manager and have worked my way up to first vice president of marketing and member experience. I know we're going to probably speak to some of the challenges, but one in particular is around member experience. I was all about marketing, and I'm like, how does this tie in? And it really is an overlap at the end of the day. It's like, how are you communicating with your members? In what channels? I mean, you can constantly be improving, but it's looking at in-branch, online, what our emails look like. All those things do fall under the umbrella of marketing member experience, which I think is why we about a year ago put it together at our credit union here.
Understand. So that really dovetails into your experience. Now, obviously, this podcast is about sharing experiences, right? Experiences and learnings, right? More of any learning that you might have. I mean, like, I have had very unconventional learnings. Like, for example, my boss always tells me at Excel, Anurag, I love the fact that you're unconventional. And I don't know what does he mean by that, right? So that's what my learning is: always follow your heart, always follow things that you want to do. And if you're true to what you believe, that thing will eventually happen. Just put 100% into it. So if I were to ask you specifically, Molly, about your learning, right? So do you want to share a few learnings that you have had, in the last few years, or it can be, as early as your soccer days, it's fine, right? But what are your life learnings?
Life learning. So I think it's a lot of different things. I mean, one thing I can tie from, my experience in playing a college sport and being in college and work is it really teaches you about time management, because that's huge in a fast-moving industry, and especially too where there's change. So one great example, I had 3 college coaches in the 4 years that I played, and it's adjusting to the different personalities and the change, and you're going to get that in the workplace as well. I think that has really helped me adapt. It wasn't brand new. Change is hard, but I think sometimes too when you stick with it and kind of fight through that uncomfortable feeling, there is that reward in the end, and there is that feeling of, wow, I got through that, and something else grew inside you as well while it was all happening, even if you didn't necessarily know exactly what that one thing is.
Yep.
It's just naturally happening.
Yep. So that's your learning. Yeah, I mean that's a very good one, I would say. I mean, it's a very good takeaway, right? Now, from learning, I want to go to the other section of sharing some advice, because you mentioned about intern, right? I'm a very, very strong believer of interning. I mean, I have got my almost first job interning. My baby sister, she's 21. I was calling up people to get her an internship back there in India, because again, I'm a huge fan of internship. Now, obviously, there have been a lot of people who have started their career as an intern and their first role like you. Do you want to share any specific piece of advice for aspiring female leaders like you? Because it takes considerable amount of time to become a vice president, and then moving up the ladder, it takes a lot of time. That too when you're from outside the ecosystem and come in, right? So do you want to share some advice for aspiring leaders that might help them navigate better, I would say?
Yes, so along those lines of an internship, slightly different, but I'm really all about having a mentor, even if you have to go ask that person. Sometimes it does naturally happen, other times you have to go get it. Someone you can trust, maybe look up to, that's going to share advice on how to get to that next level if that's what you desire, and just how to deal with work issues in general, personnel, growth, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Someone that's going to push you as well.
Yep.
Maybe tell you something you didn't want to hear, but you need to hear it.
Yep.
I've had mentors, both men and women,
Yep.
in my career, and they certainly, have helped my overall growth, and just how I think about things in general. There's one former boss I had years ago, and it sticks with me today. When you're having a day and maybe you don't agree with something, he called it the 24-hour rule. And it's like, don't respond, whether it's email or in person or on the phone. Give it 24 hours, let it settle, because sometimes you might say things that you wish you hadn't.
I don't
And
want
it
to
really
exactly.
sticks with me because we all have those moments. So I always think about that 24-hour rule. Another big one is, and something I've done a lot at Navigant, is advocating for yourself. Just to speak up, don't be afraid to be wrong or fail. I mean, what do you have to lose? It's really how you learn
Nothing
and
to lose.
grow, and
Yep.
just become a better leader and a person.
Uh, Look, I mean, I want to ask you one follow up on that, right?
Yeah,
Both on the 24-hour rule and for self advocacy or finding mentors. I mean, it comes naturally to a few people to go and ask for help, right? I mean, it's natural for me. I can just call up anyone and ask, I need help. And that's who I am. But there are a lot of people who struggle to do that, right? It's naturally going and asking for help. It's very difficult for people. So, Molly, how do you think people should tackle that? Because not everyone can go and speak outside, right? So, how do you think that should happen for others?
Well, sometimes I think, it could be on the manager noticing maybe uh, one of their employees, isn't asking, but you know that they need it. Another
Mhm.
thing is there's other initiatives or opportunities. Like here, we have a training and learning development department. So there's plenty of opportunities, and it's actually required to sign up for 2 different learnings throughout the year. And I think there's an opportunity there because I don't want to say forced within a group, but it pushes you to be a part of something and then maybe, talk with someone else while you're there that you wouldn't have normally maybe interacted with otherwise.
That's something which is valuable because
Mhm.
unless you push people out to, I mean, that's another, I don't know, it's like a two-edged sword of pushing people out of their comfort zone. They might feel intimidated, but at some point of time, that really helps you move to the next level, right? I mean, that's so important. Okay, so that's there, and second on the 24-hour rule, this is a golden piece of advice that I individually take away from the podcast
Mhm.
because I usually respond to emails within 5 minutes, right?
Mhm.
And there have been a lot of things that have happened because I responded to mails very quick, but this is really another piece of advice for me personally
Mhm.
that take your time. 24 hours is okay to respond to an email, and then do it if you're not sure about how to respond to it.
Right.
This is really good. uh, Now moving to the other section in terms of
Yep.
essentially what you do at Navigant, success stories. Let me ask you, Molly, one question, right? Actually, two questions coupled within one. One is, what is your current role at Navigant? One, and second, not a lot of people will ask you, right? Why do you do what you do?
So in my current role, so first vice president of marketing and member experience, we handle all of the external communication. So anything that is member facing runs through our department through all of the channels, whether it's website, social, um, digital, traditional media, that all comes through our department. So like I said earlier on, we're really the keepers of our brand and making sure, we're represented in the most positive light. Keeping up with our reputation and the trust that members have with us, we're responsible for helping to keep that up. I think why we do what we do is just tied back to that um, that rewarding feeling at the end of the day. Going back to really our mission, which is committed to the financial well-being of our communities, businesses, and families that we serve. And it really does tie back to that. We genuinely care about not just our members, but the communities and businesses, whether they are or aren't. And that could be through supporting them through donations or just other philanthropic needs as well. Um, but it's nice, again, we can do that through marketing um, as well.
I can understand absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, obviously, I would love you to share uh, few stories, right? I mean, like for example, I can talk about 5 success stories and 5 failures because I equally hone both of them to the utmost importance. Unless I fail, I cannot do anything, right? So we want to share a few stories, be it success, be it failure, doesn't really matter, right? But we want to share more stories, coming from you.
So one big project we worked on when I joined the marketing team, we ended up going with a new ad agency, and we were tasked with really setting ourselves apart from our competition. But what we ended up doing is setting ourselves apart from banks and really speaking to the credit union difference. So we came up with a tagline called "Our customers are our owners." And at first everyone was like, but they're not customers, they're our members. And we're like, nope, we understand when you join the credit union, you're a member. These are really to bring prospects in and speak to the credit union difference. So we have been evolving for the past 5 years, like what that statement means and trying to educate people on the credit union difference. It's been successful. We've been able to tie our messaging back to that. So we talk about, here's another owner perk, whether it's like a rate special or maybe a new feature we have on a different product. So that's one. That was very specific to marketing and brand. So we just, again, have continuously evolved that.
Yep.
And then the other piece would be around business spotlights. So we began this new initiative last year for our business members, and it's really an opportunity for them to spotlight their business and services for a full month in our local branch. We have 26. And it gets switched out every month. So again, they can bring in promotional items, coupons, marketing material. Displayed for a month has been a huge hit for our business members. It's free of charge. And then just one other one that I could mention would be around financial education. And we have a team designated to going out to schools, whether elementary all the way to high school, teaching about budgeting, credit, you name it, and just teaching kids how to handle finances when the time comes.
Interesting. I'm so fascinated by the tagline of customers are owners.
Right?
I've never spoken with a credit union this bold enough to get the messaging right. That you are members, but you're still customers because you do
And that's
business
what we
with
have to
us.
explain. Yep.
This is fantastic. I hope that you've done a bunch of messaging across to the world for this. We've been doing it for the last 5 years, but I don't know. I'm very intrigued. I usually don't do a lot of articles, but nowadays I do a few co-authoring articles. Like for example, I'm working with Elizabeth to do an article on AI. Then working with a few more people. Like for example, I don't know if you heard about this bank called. I'm forgetting the name of the bank. People's Bank has launched a digital bank. I'm just forgetting the name. I'm just going blank right now. What's wrong with me? No, it's called Zinlo, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, Zinlo. So it's one of the top 10 digital banks that have evolved in the last year.
Yeah.
So I interviewed. Alida is a very close friend of mine. So me and Alida, we are doing an article on Zinlo exactly. Done it almost 2 months back. I just forgot the name and hence I do a few articles here and there, right? So would you be interested, Molly, to co-author or not co-author, basically write about this vision and mission in an article with me? If you are available.
Absolutely. Be happy to. We have a lot of information. We did a lot of research on this because what we were seeing is, we're in a sea of sameness, as we would say all the time.
Yeah.
We all say the same thing. We all have the best customer service. We all have the best rates. So how could we set ourselves apart? And this tagline helped us do exactly that.
See, credit union movement is really good, but again, is it sexy enough to get me as a customer? How are you different than the rest? So this is really great, right?
No, and I'm happy to share, at another time too, some of the stuff we've done and just how it has evolved. Like I said, we did this about 5 years ago and just how it's evolved over time, but still sticking back to that ownership piece.
Exactly, Molly. Exactly. So this is great. I want to move to the next phase, right? I want to share a few success stories, Molly. Right. Firstly, you shared a few success stories. Now, moving on to the next, as in talking about the ecosystem as a whole, like the credit union ecosystem. Where are we heading on to, right? Now, obviously, this year things I would say have improved. Things are changing, right? But not the best to which we look at, right? We had GSE, a lot of regulations changing, bunch of things happening. But where do you think is the credit union industry heading to? Right?
Sure. So I could speak to, from a marketing and member experience perspective.
Absolutely.
We're seeing heightened focus on member experience, especially around personalization and customization, whether that's through your digital device or just how you're receiving messaging from us. So it's staying on top of all of those things. We're really diving into our data to help drive offerings and messaging.
Yep.
So we hire a company, we've done focus groups, we do member surveys and prospect surveys. We take all that data, and we've been doing this for the past few years, we take all that data and we see what people are looking for, whether it's products, how they want to be marketed to, and we're using that to help drive the whole direction and plan for the year, for the following year. And so far this year, we're seeing growth. We're seeing definitely a lot of things moving. But I think if you can use data, that's obviously key.
Absolutely. I think this is where the world is moving, right? Towards data-driven decisioning, and that's Molly what you're doing at Navigant. So this is really great to talk to a forward-thinking leader like you, who thinks about the future of the movement is data. Unless you become more data-driven and personalized, we will never win the game, right? Absolutely. So again, Molly, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you spending this time for our episode with us. Again, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.